I want to design a PNGtuber for my Twitch stream. For a few years, I've used this little robot for my first game project as my avatar while I'm talking on stream. But with the updates to my Twitch setup, it felt like the right time to finally design a new character to act as my PNGtuber. Today, I'm going to talk you through the process for drawing this, and some tips of making your own and setting it up. Let's jump into it. Hey, my name is Jade, and I like to paint with pixels. A quick breakdown of the software that I'm going to be using for this. For drawing, as usual, I'm going to be using Pixquare, which is a pixel art software for the iPad, but you can use any drawing software that you'd like for this. For setting up the PNGtuber itself to work in OBS, there are a couple different options, but I'm going to be using a software called Veadotube Mini. This felt like the easiest to get started with something simple, but still have the modularity to build on top of it in the future with adding more states and expressions. It's good to note now, if you're drawing digital art, this software supports up to 2048 by 2048 pixels for the image size. That's more than enough for pixel art since we're going to be scaling it up anyways, but good to know if you're working with bigger canvas sizes in digital art. For this project, we're going to be creating a few separate images to get the talking effect. In Veadotube, you can have an image where your character is idle and not talking, and then a second image for when they are talking. This is the minimum number of images you need to get your PNG to look like they're talking, but to add a little bit more life to them, you can also add a closed eye version of both the images to allow for your character to blink. The blinking is triggered at random intervals, which you can adjust in the settings, but as you can see, with a small change to the drawing, it adds a lot of life to the character. For my PNGtuber, we're going to be drawing the 4 different images. Before I worked on the separate images, I drew a sketch to get an idea for both the style of the character and also the colours that I wanted to use. I found the symmetry tool in Pixquare to be very useful when sketching out the face of my character. You can find the setting to switch it on in the bottom left corner of the screen. For the design of the character, I'd already had a couple things in mind before going into this. I knew I wanted to have some characteristics similar to myself, especially the hair texture, though not quite the same color. But hey, if I'm making a character who can have whatever hair color they want, why not make it my favorite color? Even though you can't see the full outfit, I wanted it to be something quite comfy and playful. Similar to what I would wear, so dungarees and a t-shirt were an easy pick for this. For the pose, I knew I wanted her to be in the middle of drawing something on our iPad, as that is the usual setup that I have for my Twitch, as I mainly do a lot of art streams there. At the end of the sketch, I had this fun idea for adding my bear character Fern as a little drawing companion, just sat on my shoulder while I draw. I like the idea that there could be different positions where she would sit, and these could be redeemed through channel points over on my Twitch, to change where Fern would go. For the actual PNGtuber files, I wanted to be very organised with how I use my layers, as I knew that I'd be moving around the different parts of the character for the different poses. Having everything on separate layers meant that I wouldn't have to redraw areas that I moved over and over again. For example, moving the hair or the face to tilt the character's head down. I think out of everything, the hair took the longest to draw. I really wanted to try and nail the texture of hair, similar to what I have, but without trying to draw every individual curl. Instead, I opted for defining bigger sections where the curls had sort of clumped together to form a bigger curl. To keep with the cartoony, more simplified style that I was going for, I only used about 3 colours when I was adding lighting and shadows. This meant I had to be quite selective with where I was placing some of the colours, especially where the front fringe and the back of the hair overlapped, and there was no bandana visible to separate the 2 sections. I added small pockets of dithering here and there to add a bit more shadows to certain parts of the hair. I felt it also helped with adding a bit more depth and texture to the hair without introducing any new colours. I wanted there to be a consistent feature throughout the design, so when I was adding details to the clothes and accessories, I added some cute flower details to different parts of the design. There's little flowers on the bandana, floral buttons on her dungarees, and she has some little flower earring studs. Though looking back now, the earrings are not that noticeable against the flowers on the bandana that's behind them, so I might need to adjust that in a future update. I did enjoy adding the flower buttons to the dungarees. I also added a layer of stitches along the edge of the fabric to make it look a little more realistic. When I finished the drawing, I started to adjust it for the 4 different images that I need to use in Veadotube. The initial drawing has the eyes open but the mouth closed, and this made it quite easy for me to duplicate the drawing into a new frame in Pixquare and then adjust it to create the other 3 images. So, we have the idle, where she's looking down at her iPad, a talking version where she looks up at the viewer to talk to them, and a version of both of these where the eyes are closed for when she's blinking. a couple of tips for when you're drawing your PNGtuber and setting them up. I mentioned earlier in the video about separating elements to their own layers being very useful for me, and as part of that, I also drew more than what was seen in the initial pose. A good example of this is with my character's hair. I split this up into 3 layers: the back, the bandana, and the front fringe. Even though you don't see much of the middle section of the bandana or the back section of hair, I still filled these in so that there was no visible gaps. That way, when I'm adjusting the face to tilt either down or to the side, or just playing around with the length of the hair, there's a lot less that I have to redraw with these adjustments. It won't work for every pose that I do. Say for example if I wanted to turn her head to face a completely different direction, I will have to redraw and adjust some bits, but this will definitely help speed up the process for that too. When drawing the open mouth version of your character for the talking state, you want to make sure that you also move the jaw when they open their mouth to talk. I made this mistake initially by just drawing over the face shape that was already there, but after lowering the chin to match the mouth opening, you can definitely see the difference side by side. This is more of a tip for when you're setting up your PNGtuber in OBS, but when you're in Veadotube, make sure that you switch the display setting to be transparent. This means that you don't have to key out a particular color as if you were using a green screen or a blue screen, though there are options for that too, if that is your preferred method. With a couple of adjustments, here is the final result. I'm super happy with how this turned out. It's something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but I've always put off the idea because I was worried that I couldn't draw a human character that I would be happy with, but this has definitely built up my confidence a bit. A cool thing about Veadotube is that it also supports animated GIFs, and I think it would be nice in the future to maybe add some simple breathing movement by raising or lowering the body slightly, or maybe even adding some mouth movements for when she's talking. There's always time for me to adjust and improve the drawings as I improve my skills, like how I did with adding the jaw movements as she talks. But for now, this is more than enough for my Twitch streams. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're learning to draw portraits as well, you might enjoy this video here, where I share some things that I've learned while I've been practicing to draw them. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care out there. Goodbye.